Mate, you know you're gonna have a busy day when you need to drink your coffee and shoot a YouTube video at the same time, because I didn't have time to just kick back, scroll on my phone, look at Instagram and shit, because I'm running late today. I've had so much fucking admin. I gotta get to this video, I gotta give you guys some information and then get on with my day. So that's what's sort of happening. Actually, I'm just gonna fucking scull this. Oh fuck, that's boom. We are there, and I'm going to show you this to start off with. It is my worst studio purchase ever, and today I'm going to be going through the worst studio purchases and the best studio purchases I've made in my career. That one I made over a decade ago, and I had no clue what I was purchasing or doing. I just thought it'd be really cool to track drums through it, and I still got a stereo out, and that was pretty disappointing. I've spent a lot of time building up this studio, trying to get the best sound, trying to have the best tools available and have the best processes, and in the midst of it you just fuck up. And I've just got a list here, and I'm gonna go through it, tell you the worst, the best of what I have purchased as a business owner, as an engineer. Actually, you know what, this is really funny. I've got my list here, and the first purchase, the best purchase I've made in the studio, is actually nothing to do with audio. It's this chair. What? Why would you say that? Well, in the first 5-6 years of working out of my bedroom and, you know, a project space and whatnot, I always bought really cheap chairs, $100 a pop. And those were my worst purchases I ever made, because I had really bad lower back problems because they just wouldn't support me properly. This is a Herman Miller Aeron, and I've spoken about it in other videos. It is just a really good fucking chair, and if you're sitting at a desk for hours on end, you're going to want to have a good chair that supports you. You're going to save yourself money in chiropractor fees and fixing up your back down the track, because you just got something which supports you for long periods of time. That's the first best purchase. The next best purchase I've made in the studio has to be my iMacs and MacBook, and I'm going to give you a breakdown. My first iMac cost me $1,500 in 2011 or 2010, and it lasted me 7 years, which is about $250 a year. That's pretty fucking good value. And then I got another iMac. I got this one, and that cost me about $4 and a bit grand, but it has like 7 times the amount of performance according to the Geekbench scores, and it really is super efficient, makes me do my work very well. And then I got a MacBook Pro, and I've got my iPad, I've got my iPhone, and even though these are very expensive purchases, they help everything along the way in creating records and keeping all my assets, keeping all my projects well managed, not having to stress about technology really failing on me outside of Pro Tools. One of my worst purchases was the Nugan ISL True Peak limiter. They're a great company, they've got a really good development team, good software, but I just bought that limiter based on the fact that it did True Peak limiting without actually demoing and listening to it. And I have to say something, the way it does True Peak limiting doesn't sound as good as what the FabFilter Pro L2 released, I think a year or so later. Now, having the Pro L2 True Peak, great purchase, really good one, one of the best ones I've ever made, the Pro L2. But the Nugan Peak limiter, it does well in other realms, but it was a bad purchase in my mind, because for what I needed it for, it didn't sound super great. And I just bought it based on function, not on actually demoing it and listening to it, which was a poor choice at the time. The next worst investment I made was business cards. I hate business cards. I thought they were what made you legitimate as a business, as a professional. But the reality is, people don't give a shit about your business card because everybody's giving them out. They end up in the bin. They're on the side of the desk. They just clutter things. The best thing to do is to get somebody's email, send them an email, say thank you for catching up, and that works a treat. I went to America, didn't bring one business card, just had a list of emails, which at the end of every day I'd thank people just to meet them, just to have spent time with them, and that works way better than a business card. Not to mention, all your information gets indexed in their email client like a Gmail, so if they need to find your mobile number or your social media, they can just search your name in their email and they'll find all your contact details. The next bad purchase I have to say was my Crane Song Ibis. They're a great company, they develop a lot of really good tools, and it is a really interesting piece of gear, but for the price point and what I was doing with it, it just wasn't a good purchase. To spend $5-6 grand or whatever it was to get that EQ, to just use the high shelf because I didn't like the sound of the other parts of it, was sort of a bad decision on my behalf. I remedied it though with a really good purchasing decision, which was the high voltage EQ6S, which is perfectly stereo matched, has a really good high shelf filter, one that I think actually trumps the Crane Song Ibis, and at a fraction of the cost. So that was a really, really good purchase. The next bad purchase decision or worst purchasing decision was the JDK R24. It's a great sounding unit, I give it credit there, but outside of being good sounding, it doesn't really have much application in my workflow at all. When I started out, I was doing more production, mixing stuff, and there was opportunity to integrate analog gear into my workflow, but these days, analog gear only really shows itself in the mastering chain. That doesn't have any stereo matching capabilities. It's really hard to match the left and right channels or the two channels together, so it just sits as a dust collector. So it's not the best purchase I ever made. Guaranteed the hands down best, one of the best, not even one of the best, the best purchase was one I took a really big risk on, and that was commissioning the build of my Barry Porter Net EQ. This was more an opportunity that arose from itself because I saw a custom builder doing a prototype of the Barry Porter EQ. I had ideas of what I wanted in my chain, which was a analog EQ with the resolution of a digital one, so a very, very, 24 stepped pots on each band, everything stereo matched, really clean, good sounding analog EQ, and I took the risk and it paid off. And that gets used in almost every session because it just is so easy to use. It's so easy to get what I want out of a master when I'm using it. That was a really good purchase. This one is a bad purchase, and it's not even a purchase I had a choice in because it comes with the iMac, and those are the Magic Mouse and Magic Keyboard. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is worse than not being able to charge your mouse while you're using it and it going out in the middle of a session and having to pull out an old mouse with a cable. Fuck me, Apple. Get your shit together on that one. Those are my best and my worst purchases that I made at the studio. I know that we all make mistakes and we all have some wins